No revelations this morning, dear journal, but for the dysfunction passed through generations of my family. I would that I had grappled with this dysfunction long ago, and not passed the pain of it to my daughter. Well, it stops now. She and I have put an end to it. It is so fucking difficult to face down your own life, your own past. Face up to it, to own it, to make peace with it, to forgive yourself and to move on. I am in mourning now. Mourning for a life misspent, squandered on deception, and reaching out in my own pain and anger to strike out blindly, hurting others, whom I should never have struck. Am I being too hard on myself? I don't know. Perhaps I was grappling with a slippery opponent that I could not see clearly. For many years, all of my life, really, I tried to make sense of this. But I lacked vital information, a puzzle frame in which I could put all of the pieces in place. My mother finally supplied that when she told me I had an older sister. All of the years of deception and subterfuge, and unspoken conspiracy in my maternal family, suddenly snapped into relief, and I could make sense of events, feelings, and interaction within that side of the family. They were all duplicitous in this deceit. Saying this, realizing this deception and prejudice within my mother and her family, I must forgive them. After all, was not my mother the victim of a system based upon the oppression of women? Yes, she failed us. My father, my sisters, and myself. But have I done any better? She has suffered all of her life, self-persecuted by the failing that she could never forgive, and so ran from throughout her life. My father forgave her before he died. If he could forget what she did to him, could I do any less? Oh, my poor dad, how they all lied to you. They lied to all of us, you, me, and my younger sister. And if my lost sibling had not contacted my mother, that duplicity would have continued to the grave. Still, you forgave my mother when she eventually told you. You forgave her, and you forgave her family. You did not deserve this betrayal. You are perhaps the most loving and healthiest person I have ever known. You raised yourself out of your own family dysfunction. You were nurturing and caring. Your heart was too big to be used as a doormat. And when you finally dropped the facade of masculine swagger, you were a gentle and loving soul. I think you may have been a woman under that facade, just as I was under mine. I have an image that has impacted me for years, of you with your adult face imposed atop a child, a girl in a dress. It seems you told me that you had a teacher who used to punish you when you got in trouble by making you dress as a girl. Looking back on this from my present perspective, I don't think it ever happened. Back in the 1940s, it would have been a scandal if it did happen. And never would you have told me about it when I was that young. I think it was a dream, a product of my subconscious mind which understood these dynamics within you and I, and which expressed them in the manner best available to it in the mind of a child so young. I remember this dream, as I call it, had a big impact on me, which I was at a loss to interpret, growing up in an age when there was no discussion of such things, no framework to make sense of them. It took me over 50 years to come to terms with my own truth, and to grow out of the dysfunction fostered on that foundation of self-deceit. Now I must take responsibility for all of the pain I've inflicted on others by my own pain, my own anger, lashing out blindly. And that truth I resisted for so long. Was it really so terrible? Not at all. I am a woman. So what? To be a woman is not a bad thing, but a blessing. It is the prejudice of our misogynistic society that made me feel otherwise. The power of that belief system has kept women imprisoned and oppressed for most of the history of human civilization. Women are not the inferior gender. This falsehood has kept us subjugated far too long. This is why it is so important that we do not allow reactionaries to push us back into those dark ages. The children who need it now have this framework, so that they can grow up in a more healthy and honest manner, and not pass along the pain of deceit, shame, and anger. This is what the reactionaries really want. They want to push us back in the closet and perpetuate that dysfunction, so injurious to the individual and to society. They would rather condemn another generation than to deal with their own dysfunction. In this time, when those who do not wish to heal their own pain and open their eyes to the lies woven into the very fabric of our society, would rather condemn us all back to a system of repression, it is important for me to stand and proclaim this truth, citing myself as an example. I must stand for myself and speak with courage and painful honesty, saying that yes, I have hurt myself and others because I could not admit my truth in a system that persecuted anyone who stood out of the defined gender roles. I shall have to bear the ridicule and accusations as a living example of why it is so vital to the welfare of our very society that we do not push our children back into that prison, but help them to be themselves. And as I bear the wounds others would inflict on me for my honesty, I must not strike back at them, realizing that they are the greatest victims of their own prejudice. They are the ones who need to be healed by admitting the wounds this deranged and disempowering social construct of misogyny has inflicted on them. For, after all, the ones who strike out the hardest are the most grievously injured. We must recognize that they are not our enemy. They are victims who have internalized their own abuse. They need love, self-forgiveness, and healing. So there is a revelation for this day, dear journal, revealed fully only as I explore it with you. Not just a revelation, but the revelation, the most important revelation of all. Now I must own it and use it to help heal our ravaged population, ravaged by this epidemic of gender prejudice that has raged through our populace since the inception of society, striking down more than half, while leaving the remainder transformed into their own oppressors. Oh, my poor humanity, I offer you the balm of forgiveness for my parents, for myself, and for my daughter. Come, let us cry together, for only through these tears shall we heal.